Welcome back to Meet the Bloggers. I want to first tell you about a poll we just did on the live blog. Should we send more troops to Afghanistan? 60% said yes, 40% said no. I'm actually a little surprised by that answer, and I want to talk to our bloggers about that. And our bloggers this week are Roberto Lovato. He's a writer at New America Media and a blogger at ofamerica.wordpress.com. He writes extensively on issues of immigration, race, culture, and national security. This week he's been blogging about Afghanistan and the continued increasing militarism of the United States there. Liliana Segura writes for Alternate. She writes about liberties and special war coverage at alternate.org, and she's a staff writer and associate editor. And this week she criticized the open-ended war currently known as the War on Terror. And Baratunde Thurston is a blogger and a true conscious comic. He was a nominee for the Bill Hicks Spirit Award for thought-provoking comedy. He provokes a lot of thought on his blog at jackandjillpolitics.com. Welcome, everybody.
Hey.
Roberto, let me start with you. Our poll says 60% of even our viewers say send more troops to Iraq. Agree or disagree?
Well, no, I can't say I agree, and I have to check the scientific viability of that poll. But that said, I think Afghanistan is our great opportunity to learn what we haven't learned, which is that militarism hasn't solved any of our problems in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and anywhere else, and in our economy. And so we really need to hunker down and learn from history, from people like Zbigniew Brzezinski, who said basically a couple of weeks ago in the Washington Post that we shouldn't follow the failure of the Soviet Empire, which in fact he helped, quote unquote, defeat. And so he knows this terrain, and he knows how scary it is, as do people like my nephew who look at those mountains and saw that we would never be able to militarily defeat people that are been in those mountains for hundreds, even thousands of years.
Liliana, I once went to Key West when I was in college and bought a shorts that I'm still embarrassed about. It said, "Booze is the answer, I forgot the question." And in the media today, it appears that war is the answer and we've forgotten the question. It seems that our answer is always, for anything, war on drugs, war on terror, war on poverty, war on Afghanistan. If war is not the answer in Afghanistan, what is?
Well, if what you mean by war is an increase in troop numbers and an escalation of the war, then absolutely, yes, that is not the answer. I would say that one answer that's an alternative to that is an actual ending of the occupation. I mean, what people don't realize who unthinkingly support the Afghanistan war and say that this is the right war is that the implication of that, whatever the troop levels, is years and years of committing troops and resources and whatever else to a region that, I mean, American people don't really quite understand it. They don't understand the history. I mean, I think that we really have to take a step back and look at what this actually means. And I think we have to end the occupation. I think that we also are responsible for helping reconstruct what's been a devastated country for frankly decades. And the NGO Oxfam just released a report that basically said we're falling short to the tune of some $10 billion in providing the assistance that's so desperately needed.
Baratunde, the problem is whenever we ask for more money for war, Congress seems to be able to find it. But when we ask for more money for development, which actually can win the hearts and minds of people in Afghanistan or Pakistan or Iraq, well, sorry, we just ran out. So the question then becomes, in my mind, how do we win the hearts and minds of Americans to get them to understand that the answer isn't always war, but to sometimes do development aid, as Oxfam points out?
Well, first of all, you guys did a great interview with Rachel, and if she's not on Obama's VP shortlist, I think she should be. I would definitely vote for that ticket. As far as communicating with the American people, part of the problem we have and part of the challenge you see in that poll result you just ran is more troops in Afghanistan, 60-40, but to do what? And part of what's been nice about this campaign season, we have at least on the Democratic side of candidate who tends to talk to us more like adults, but in this area it still sounds very simple. More troops, more war, but not exactly spelling out what needs to be done. There are cases where more troops can help, but as long as we're not seeing that as the whole solution and communicate that to the people, I think they will come around to understanding that much more needs to be done on the humanitarian side, on the infrastructure side, and most importantly, understanding that America can't solve everything everywhere. and we can't completely rebuild another country in just a few short years. We're having a little bit of trouble with our own right now.
You know, Roberto, the question then arises, how did we get into this mess? How did we come to the point where we only have military solutions? You think that it might have something to do with the military-industrial complex?
I think it does. If Dwight D. Eisenhower is still correct, and I think he's still correct, and axiomatically and tragically so. Until the people of the United States, until we learn that we're being sold a bill of goods by the people who make more bombs and own television networks and who advertise on CNN and saying that they're working in our national interest. Until we learn to end the addiction to believing them, we need to stop believing the Pentagon. We need to stop believing the experts that the Pentagon pays to be on television, as we saw in the New York Times report a few months ago. We need to stop believing what Jerry Bruckheimer movies tell us and what our television sets are telling us. We're militarized throughout our culture and our economy. I mean, Joseph Stiglitz told us that in his book that we live in a $3 trillion war economy. If these aren't enough, I mean, what is?
You know, it's interesting because the people that seem to agree with you, Roberto, to some degree, are very ironically the people at the RAND report, and they're not known as softies. But they had a study that questioned U.S. strategy against Al-Qaeda. They said, according to an Associated Press article, that American officials should stop using the term war on terror and replace it with counterterrorism. Quote, terrorists should be perceived and described as criminals, not holy warriors, and our analysis suggests there is no battlefield solution to terrorism, which is amazing quote coming from RAND. And Seth Jones, the lead author of that study and a RAND political scientist, wrote that. So that, of course, leads to the question, Baratunde, was John Kerry right in 2004 when he said this is more crime fighting than war fighting?
I think what this proves is that everybody at RAND is just as flip-floppish, windsurfing, and latte sipping as John Kerry was in 2004. It's going to come as a shock to the establishment to find that out. Look, changing the language is the first step toward changing the policy. War on terror, as a comedian friend of mine saying, war on an emotion doesn't make a lot of sense. It's rhetorical, it's emotional, and it's short-sighted because there's no detail to it. We need to understand that the policy has to shift. We also need to understand our role in often creating some of these environments when we, fund massive military deployment in these autocratic regimes to extract the resources that we love without thinking about the people who are left to live with it.
Real quick, Roberto, is that one of the problems when we go to win hearts and minds in Afghanistan? We have trouble doing it because our corporations have come in and their interest is not winning hearts and minds but winning contracts and oil rights in Iraq as well as Afghanistan?
Well, I think it has to do with this kind of sinister combination of a world of free trade protected by militarism. I mean, we have to remember we have 737 military bases and troop stations around the world on 130 countries on every continent. And so that isn't just about, promoting democracy in the American way. It's about defending corporate interests like those of Exxon, as we found in places like Ecuador, where they closed the military base and are threatening the interests of Exxon. And so now there's a lot of noise in places like Ecuador. So it's not just Afghanistan, it's kind of the world entire, and it's breaking our budgets.
All right, guys, stay right there because we're going to come back and talk to you a little bit about news breaking today about Pakistan and their involvement in fighting against us in Afghanistan. And you all stay right there as well. We'll be right back on Meet the Bloggers.